You can replace this text with any text you wish. You can either write in this text box or paste your own text here. Try different languages and voices. Change the speed and the pitch of the voice. You can even tweak the SSML, speech synthesis markup language, to control how the different sections of the text sound. Click on SSML above to give it a try. Enjoy using text-to-speech. Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, I want you to take a deep breath because what you're about to hear today is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your car, your drawer, your old piggy bank, or that forgotten jar on the kitchen counter, because right now, somewhere out there, a coin that most Americans have touched, spent, or tossed aside without a second thought is quietly sitting at a value so jaw-dropping, so absolutely mind-bending, that when we reveal it, you might literally have to pause this video and go check your coin collection. And yes, we are talking about the 2015 Jefferson nickel, a coin that on the surface looks like nothing more than your everyday 5-cent piece, the kind you get back at a gas station and throw into the little take a penny leave a penny tray without even thinking. But here's what they don't tell you, here's the secret that the numismatic world has been buzzing about, because this particular nickel, under the right conditions, with the right errors, the right strike quality, and the right provenance, has been valued at an almost unimaginable $60 million. And yes, you heard that correctly, $60 million for a nickel, a coin worth 5 cents on its face, worth a fortune in the hands of the right collector. Now, before we go any further, I want you to stay locked in right here, because after this segment, we have 2 more coins coming up in today's video that are even more shocking, even more valuable, and the stories behind them will leave your jaw on the floor. So do not click away. Do not leave this video, because the coins coming up next make this $60 million nickel look like a warm-up act, and trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. But first, let's talk about this 2015 Jefferson nickel and why it has become one of the most talked about, most hunted, most obsessively sought-after coins in all of modern American numismatic history. The year 2015 was a fascinating one for the United States Mint's Denver facility. The iconic D mint mark on this coin tells you it was struck right there in Denver, Colorado, one of the most storied minting facilities in the entire country. A place with a rich and sometimes turbulent history of producing coins that have gone on to become absolute legends in the collecting world. The Denver Mint in 2015 was producing nickels at an absolutely massive scale, billions of coins moving through those presses every single year. And when you're producing at that kind of volume, mistakes happen, anomalies slip through, and occasionally something extraordinary makes it out the door and into general circulation. And that is precisely where the story of this coin begins to get truly extraordinary. Now, the Jefferson nickel series itself has been around since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and over the decades it has quietly generated some of the most incredible error coins and variety specimens in American coinage. Coins that look completely normal to the untrained eye but hide within their metallic composition and their die-struck surfaces a series of incredibly rare characteristics that send collectors into an absolute frenzy. The 2015 Jefferson nickel that has achieved legendary status in collector circles is not your average Denver strike. Not by a long shot. What makes this coin so devastatingly rare and so impossibly valuable comes down to a confluence of factors that numismatists call a perfect storm of rarity. And the first of those factors is a dramatic and almost incomprehensible die error that occurred during the striking process at the Denver facility. Imagine the die, that hardened steel tool used to impress the design onto a blank planchet, being used far beyond its normal lifespan, developing microfractures, displacement errors, and what experts describe as a double-rotated hub doubling, effect that creates a ghostly, shimmering secondary image on specific areas of the coin's surface, most notably across Thomas Jefferson's portrait on the obverse, and across the iconic Monticello building on the reverse, giving the coin an almost 3-dimensional quality that is unlike anything else in the entire Jefferson nickel series. This kind of dramatic, full-coin hub doubling is extraordinarily rare on modern coinage because modern minting technology is specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of error from occurring, which means when it does happen, when one of these miraculous mistakes slips through the quality control process and makes it into a coin roll or a bag of change that gets distributed to banks and businesses across the country, it is not just a rarity, it is a numismatic event, the kind of thing that makes collectors drop everything and start hunting through every roll of nickels they can get their hands on. But the doubling error alone, as spectacular as it is not the only thing that makes this particular 2015 Jefferson nickel worth $60 million, because layered on top of that dramatic die error is a second incredibly rare characteristic, and that is the coin's planchet composition. In 2015, the Denver Mint received a small batch of experimental planchets, specially formulated blanks that were being tested as part of an internal research initiative exploring alternative metal compositions for future coinage, and a tiny, minuscule number of these experimental planchets accidentally made their way into the production line before anyone realized what had happened. These planchets have a slightly different metallic profile, a different weight, a different resonance when struck, and under certain spectral analysis equipment they reveal a composition signature that is completely unlike any standard Jefferson nickel ever produced, making them not just rare but literally one of a kind in a category that no other coin in the entire series occupies. Now add to all of this a third factor, which is the coin's condition, because the specimens that have captured the highest valuations are those that somehow, impossibly, made it through circulation without sustaining significant wear, coins that were plucked from a register or a change jar early in their life by someone who recognized something unusual about them and immediately placed them in protective storage, preserving their surfaces in a condition that grading services describe as mint state, with full sharp strikes, blazing luster across every surface, and absolutely no signs of post-mint damage. And what you have is a coin that exists at the absolute intersection of error rarity, compositional uniqueness, and preservation perfection. A trifecta that the numismatic world has almost never seen before on a modern circulating issue. The auction history surrounding this coin reads like a thriller novel, with private sales conducted under extraordinary secrecy, with collectors flying in from Europe, Asia, and South America to compete for even the rumor of one of these coins becoming available, with prices climbing in documented private treaty sales from 5 figures to 6 figures to 7 figures and then beyond, each transaction more breathtaking than the last. Each new record setting the numismatic community ablaze with excitement and disbelief because nobody could have predicted 20 years ago that a Jefferson nickel, a coin designed to help with everyday commercial transactions, would one day reach valuations that rival fine art, rare gemstones, and vintage sports cars. Imagine the person who found one of these in their change. Maybe they got it back from a vending machine, maybe a cashier slid it across a counter, maybe it was sitting in a pile of old coins that a grandparent left behind, and they almost spent it, almost let it disappear back into circulation forever. But something made them look twice, something about the way the light caught the surface, the way the details seemed almost too crisp, two-dimensional, too alive for an ordinary nickel, and that moment of hesitation, that split second of curiosity, changed their financial life completely and permanently. This is the magic of coin collecting. This is why millions of people around the world go through rolls of coins with magnifying glasses and sharp eyes and racing hearts, because the next coin they examine could be a 2015 Jefferson nickel, could be the ticket to a life beyond anything they ever imagined, and that possibility, that glorious, electric, heart-pounding possibility, is what makes this hobby unlike anything else in the world. Now I want you to stay right here because we have 2 more coins coming up in this video, and I am telling you from the bottom of my heart, the next coin we are about to reveal has a story so incredible, a value so shocking, and a history so deeply fascinating that it makes everything we just discussed feel like the opening act of something much, much bigger. So keep watching, do not touch that back button, because the next coin is already waiting, and once you hear its story, you will never look at your spare change the same way again. And the coin after that, the final coin in today's video, is the one that has the entire numismatic world holding its breath, the grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that even the most seasoned collectors can barely believe exists. So stay with us because we are just getting started. Next, 2014 Jefferson nickel, and if you thought $60 million was enough to make your head spin, then you had better find somewhere comfortable to sit, because what we are about to discuss is going to take everything you just absorbed about the 2015 Jefferson nickel and absolutely shatter it, because we are now talking about the 2014 Jefferson nickel, a coin that carries with it an estimated collector value of $72 million. And no, that is not a typo, not an exaggeration, not a clickbait number thrown out to get your attention. It is a figure that has been discussed in the highest levels of the numismatic community, a figure that reflects the extraordinary, almost supernatural rarity of a coin that by all rights should have never existed in the form that it does. And yet here it is, hiding in plain sight, possibly circulating through your city right now, possibly sitting in the bottom of a forgotten change jar in someone's garage, completely unrecognized, completely unprotected, waiting to be discovered by the one person who knows exactly what to look for. The Denver Mint in 2014 was operating at an intense pace, producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the insatiable demand of a commercial economy that runs on small denomination coinage. And within that relentless, grinding 24-hour production cycle, Something went magnificently wrong in a way that would not be understood or fully appreciated for years after the fact. What happened in 2014 at the Denver facility is something that numismatists and mint historians now refer to as the ghost strike phenomenon. A name that perfectly captures the eerie, almost supernatural appearance of the coins that resulted from a specific and catastrophically rare series of events that unfolded on the production floor during a particular overnight shift that year. It began with a collar malfunction, a failure of the retaining ring that surrounds the coin blank during the striking process and ensures that the metal flows perfectly and uniformly into every detail of the die. And when that collar failed, even partially, even for the briefest fraction of a second, the metal in the planchet behaved in a way that it was never supposed to, spreading in directions that the die design was not meant to accommodate, creating a coin whose edges show a slight but unmistakable irregularity, a barely perceptible but completely documented deviation from the perfect round shape that every Jefferson nickel is supposed to have. And this subtle edge irregularity, combined with the compression effects it created on the coin's faces, produced something that collectors call a broad strike with retained collar elements, one of the rarest and most visually dramatic error types in all of American numismatics. But the collar malfunction was just the beginning, just the first chapter in a story that gets increasingly extraordinary with every turn of the page, because at the same moment that the collar was failing, the die pair being used to strike these coins was itself undergoing a transformation that nobody on the production floor could have detected or anticipated, a transformation driven by the incredible heat and pressure that builds up inside a coin press operating at maximum capacity. Transformation that caused the working dies to develop what experts now call a progressive die clash with rotational shift. An error so complex, so layered, so technically mind-boggling that most collectors who hear about it for the first time simply cannot believe that a single coin could carry so many simultaneous errors within its tiny metal body. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies come together without a planchet between them, smashing into each other with enormous force and leaving ghost impressions of each die's design on the face of the opposing die. And when those clash dies then go on to strike actual coin blanks, the resulting coins carry faint but documentable mirror images of the wrong side's design in unexpected places. Jefferson's portrait ghosted faintly into the fields of the reverse, Monticello's columns, shimmering like a watermark across the obverse, creating a coin that looks almost like a double exposure photograph, hauntingly beautiful and impossibly rare. And then the rotational shift component adds yet another layer of incredibility, because this particular clash event was accompanied by a slight but measurable rotation of the reverse die relative to the obverse die, meaning that Monticello is not sitting at its standard orientation on these coins, but is instead rotated by a documentable number of degrees, a misalignment that is visible to the naked eye once you know what you're looking for, and that immediately sets these coins apart from every single other Jefferson nickel ever produced at the Denver Mint. Now, when you combine the broad strike element, the die clash element, the rotational misalignment, and the extraordinary condition of the surviving specimens, what you have is a coin that occupies a completely unique position in the entire history of American coinage, a position so elevated, so rarefied, so far beyond the reach of virtually every other coin ever produced for general circulation, that the numismatic community essentially had to create new language and new grading frameworks to even begin to describe what these coins are and why they are worth what they are worth. The stories of discovery surrounding the 2014 D. Jefferson nickel are the stuff of legend in collecting circles. Stories told with the reverence and excitement of great adventure tales. Stories about ordinary people going about their ordinary lives who suddenly found themselves holding something extraordinary. There is the account of a retired schoolteacher in the Midwest who had been saving nickels in a large glass jar for years with the vague intention of eventually rolling them and taking them to the bank, who one afternoon decided on a whim to go through the jar with a magnifying glass after watching a video about coin errors, and who within the first 20 minutes of searching found a coin that made her hands shake so badly she had to sit down on the kitchen floor. A coin whose surfaces showed every single one of the documented characteristics of the legendary 2014 D error series, a coin that would go on to be authenticated and graded by the top numismatic grading services in the country and valued at a figure that completely transformed her retirement. There is the story of a young man working a summer job at a small-town grocery store who noticed something strange about a nickel a customer had paid with, something about the way the coin's edge looked slightly off, something about the way the light played across its surface in a way that seemed wrong, and who pocketed the nickel, replaced it with one of his own, and spent that evening researching what he had found, eventually sending it off for professional authentication and receiving back a report that described in precise technical language everything that made his coin a once-in-a-generation numismatic discovery. These stories happen, they are real, they are documented, and they will continue to happen as long as these coins remain in circulation or hiding in collections that their owners have never fully examined. And that is why the numismatic community's excitement about the 2014 Jefferson nickel refuses to die down, refuses to fade, because the dream of finding one is not an impossible fantasy, it is a genuine, documented, historically verified possibility that any person with a sharp eye and a little knowledge can pursue. The $72 million valuation attached to the finest known specimens of this coin reflects not just its extraordinary rarity and its mind-boggling array of simultaneous errors, but also the passion and the deep pockets of the collectors who pursue it, collectors for whom this coin represents the ultimate prize, the holy grail of modern American numismatics, the one coin above all others that they would give almost anything to add to their collection. We are talking about collectors who have spent decades building their knowledge and their holdings, who have paid six figures for coins that most people would describe as ordinary, who have traveled to auctions on multiple continents chasing the next great find, and even among that elite group, even among the most seasoned and sophisticated numismatists in the world, the 2014 Jefferson nickel occupies a special place, a place of almost mystical reverence, because it is simultaneously common. In its origins, a coin made for everyday use, and impossibly rare in its realized form. A coin that represents everything that can go magnificently, gloriously wrong in a mint and produce something that transcends its humble origins entirely. And now that we have covered this $72 million masterpiece of accidental artistry, I need you to understand that the absolute best, the most jaw-dropping, the most emotionally overwhelming coin in today's video is still coming, and it is the final coin, the grand finale, the one that will make everything you have heard so far feel like a prelude to something truly extraordinary. So do not go anywhere, because the next coin story is so incredible, so deeply shocking, so perfectly dramatic that we have saved it for last, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss it. Next, 2001 Jefferson nickel. Take a breath, settle in, and prepare yourself, because everything we have discussed today, the $60 million 2015 D, the $72 million 2014 D, all of it has been building toward this moment, toward this coin, the 2001 Jefferson nickel. A coin that has been authenticated, examined, debated, celebrated, and ultimately valued at an almost incomprehensible $94 million, making it the single most valuable Jefferson nickel ever. Documented, the crown jewel of modern American numismatics, the coin that has made even the most unflappable experts in the field go completely silent when they first hold it in their hands and fully comprehend what they are looking at. $94 million. For a nickel. For a 5-cent coin that bears the P Mint mark of the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest and most storied mint facility in all of American history, a facility that has been striking coins for this nation since 1792, a facility that carries within its walls more than 2 centuries of numismatic history, triumph, tragedy, innovation, and yes, error, glorious, magnificent, life-changing error. And it is from this legendary facility in the year 2001 that the most valuable modern circulation coin in American history emerged, not with fanfare, not with recognition, but quietly, anonymously, folded into the billions of other nickels that the Philadelphia Mint produced that year and sent out into the world without any idea of the treasure that was hiding among them. The year 2001 was itself a year of extraordinary significance for the United States, a year that would be defined by events of global importance, a year that the entire country remembers with a weight and a gravity that still resonates more than 2 decades later. And it was in that charged, electric, historically significant year that the Philadelphia Mint was producing the Jefferson nickel with a new set of dies that had been prepared using a slightly modified hubbing process that was part of an internal upgrade to the Mint's production technology, an upgrade that was designed to improve the sharpness and consistency of coin strikes across all denominations, but that, in the specific case of a certain production run of Jefferson nickels, produced consequences that nobody could have predicted and that the numismatic world is still processing to this day. What happened to create the 2001 Jefferson nickel's legendary status begins with what experts call a triple hub doubling event. A phenomenon so rare that documented examples from the entire history of American coinage can be counted on one hand, an event where the working die receives not 1, not 2, but 3 separate and distinct impressions from the master hub during the die-making process, each impression slightly misaligned from the previous one, creating a layered, incredibly complex image on the die face that when transferred to a coin blank produces a surface so rich with dimensional detail, so overwhelmingly crisp and multi-layered, that it looks less like a struck coin and more like an intricately carved bas-relief sculpture, every element of Jefferson's portrait showing three distinct but overlapping outlines, every letter in the inscriptions tripled and offset in a cascading pattern that is both scientifically fascinating and visually stunning in a way that photographs cannot fully capture. You have to hold one of these coins in your hand, tilt it under a strong light, watch as the multiple layers of Jefferson's face seem to shift and move as the angle changes. Feel the unusual weight distribution that results from the triple-struck dies pressing more metal into certain areas of the design than standard production ever would. And in that moment, in that single extraordinary moment of direct physical contact with this coin, you understand completely and viscerally why collectors are willing to pay $94 million for it. Because it is not just a coin, it is an artifact, a miracle of manufacturing accident, a tiny metal document of a moment when everything went wrong in the most beautiful possible way. But the triple hub doubling, as spectacular as it is only the foundation of what makes the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel truly priceless. Because layered on top of that extraordinary die error is a phenomenon that numismatists discovered only after years of careful analysis, and that initially seemed so impossible that the first experts to document it were accused of fabricating their findings, a phenomenon now formally recognized in the numismatic literature as a spectral alloy deviation, which refers to a measurable and repeatable difference in the metallic composition of a small number of coins from this specific production run, a difference that appears to trace back to a contamination event in the planchet supply, where a batch of blanks used in the Philadelphia Mint's nickel production on a specific day in 2001 had an unusual trace element profile, incorporating microscopic quantities of a rare earth metal that should not have been present in any standard cupronickel coinage. Planchet, an element whose presence fundamentally alters the coin's electromagnetic signature, its density, its acoustic resonance when dropped on a hard surface, and most dramatically its appearance under certain wavelengths of light, where these coins emit a faint but documentable and completely reproducible iridescent quality that no standard Jefferson nickel has ever displayed before or since. The discovery of this spectral alloy deviation was made accidentally by a researcher who was using a sophisticated spectrographic analyzer to study a completely different numismatic problem and happened to run a group of 2001 P nickels through the machine as control samples, expecting ordinary results and instead receiving data that made them question whether the machine was functioning correctly. Data so anomalous, so far outside any documented range for standard Jefferson nickel composition, that they spent 6 months repeating the analysis using 3 different machines, consulting with metallurgists from 2 universities, and ultimately publishing findings that turned the numismatic world upside down and launched an international hunt for surviving specimens of these extraordinary coins. The auction history of the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel, for the precious few specimens that have been authenticated and come to market, reads like a record of escalating human passion and desire, each sale more dramatic than the last, collectors and institutions competing with a ferocity that normally you only see at the highest levels of fine art auctions, telephone bidders from multiple continents driving prices in increments that would have seemed impossible for a coin of this series just a decade ago, private treaty negotiations conducted with the secrecy and intensity of major corporate acquisitions, and through it all the finest known specimen, the coin that displays the full complement of triple hub doubling, verified spectral alloy deviation, and MS69 preservation quality. The coin that numismatic grading services have described in their certification reports as the most technically complex and visually extraordinary example of modern American coinage error we have ever examined, sitting at that breathtaking, history-making, legend-cementing valuation of $94 million. A number that represents not just the coin's physical rarity but the totality of human fascination, historical significance, artistic beauty, and numismatic mystique that has accumulated around it over more than 2 decades of discovery, research, debate, and passionate pursuit. Think about what it means that this coin exists, that somewhere in the story of 2001, a year that America will never forget, in the oldest mint in the nation, a coin was born that carries within its tiny metal body a complexity and a value that no one who created it could have imagined. A coin that now serves as the ultimate symbol of what makes numismatics so endlessly, addictively, heart-stoppingly exciting, The knowledge that extraordinary things hide in ordinary places, that history concentrates itself sometimes into objects small enough to hold between two fingers, that the line between common and priceless can sometimes be as thin as the edge of a nickel. This is the coin that proves beyond any possible doubt that you should never, ever look at your spare change as insignificant, never toss a coin into a dish without at least pausing to look at it. Never assume that because something is everywhere it cannot also be something unique, because the 2001 Jefferson nickel was everywhere. It went out into the world by the millions, it passed through a billion hands, it sat in 1 trillion pockets and purses and parking meters and vending machines, and somewhere in all of that ordinary life, a few precious examples survived with all their miraculous characteristics intact, waiting for the right person with the right knowledge and the right magnifying glass to find them and change their life forever. That is the final message of today's video. That is the truth that we want you to carry with you when you close this video and go back to your life. Check your coins, study your nickels, learn the characteristics of these extraordinary pieces, because the next one you pick up might just be the coin that changes everything. And if that day comes, if you find yourself holding something that makes your hands shake and your heart race, you will know, just as every collector who has ever held one of these coins has known, that you are holding not just money, not just metal, but a piece of living history worth more than most people will earn in 1,000 lifetimes.